Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Process. My name is Bear Knox, and I'm here with Damien Kane Rigden,
Hey there.
an artist of many mediums. So this man is a painter, a photographer, a musician, an author. I'm pretty sure if you can create it, he does. So we're going to get into your life story
All
a
right,
little bit,
let's do it.
Damien. But
Yeah,
before we jump into, just a background or anything like that, how you doing? You doing good?
I'm good. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. Bear and I have been friends on social media for a little while. We've been like sharing each other's art, supporting each other, and so yeah, love your music, and I've been looking forward to talking to you. So
Thanks,
happy to
man.
be here. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Like, okay, so um, this show, this is the very first episode of the process, and
hmm
it's to lay some groundwork. Before we're 100 episodes in, people don't really know maybe what we're supposed to be doing here, and I'm just talking to you about how you make art, how you
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
um, the stuff that people need to want to be alive for. you know.
I
um,
hear you. Yeah.
so um, I want to jump right into that before we, you
Sure.
know, do much else. But this conversation is going to go wherever it goes, and
Yeah,
hope
man.
all of y'all
Happy
come
to
along
talk
for a
about
ride.
it. Well, like you said, so I work in several different media. It hasn't always been that way. Like I have slowly kind of picked things up over the years. I started primarily in the visual media. I think when my art, my visual art really started to take off was when I decided to start drawing in my sketchbook in pen.
Okay.
I before then I was like, I'd make a line with a pencil, I'd erase it, and I'd find myself doing that like 20 times before I even got into a drawing. And I'm like, no, this like I can't keep doing this. So I got myself a moleskin sketchbook and a pen, and I'm like, pages you can't rip out, something you can't erase, and just like go for it. And I brought it all around with me. I've done a lot of travel in my life, so I've got like sketches from, you know, Amsterdam and Paris and all these sort of places that I've been, and so I just carried the sketchbook around with me, and I didn't look back, and I started to get more confidence. I like, not only was I not erasing, but I wasn't like giving up on drawings either. I wouldn't like draw a couple pen lines, be like, oh no, this is garbage, and like start over again. I would like stick with it until I finished. And I found often, even when like early on, I would not be into what I was doing. By the end, I'm like, hey, this is actually okay. And you sort of begin to like embrace the mistakes and figure out how to work through them and work around them and work them into the art. Like I have a sort of my pen drawing style is very sort of organic, sketchy, kind of rough around the edges. And one of my ways of handling mistakes is like I start to make more mistakes like it intentionally in other parts of the drawing to make it like all go together, right? So
Man,
I'll
that's
get
that's
like,
like
oh,
a
this,
that's a Miles Davis thing right there, dude. It's like
right?
there are not
Yes.
there are not wrong
Yeah.
notes, man. They're just
Yeah, exactly.
sometimes they might just mean it, like lay on it until it's supposed to be
Exactly.
there. Like
Yeah.
that's
I'm
that's a
like,
that's a huge workaround for like perfectionism.
yeah.
Um, you have to craft some methodology to deal with perfectionism, I
hmm
guess, because perfectionism is what it's just really procrastination, right? It's
Yeah,
just it's like a
exactly.
it's like a
Yeah.
BS thing you tell
Yeah.
yourself.
You'll never
And
get anything done. You'll never be happy with whatever you do,
I you know
and
I
like,
go ahead.
yeah, I'm a firm believer that you don't create something you're proud of by working on one thing forever, right? Like that thing is going to come out how it's going to come out. The important thing is finishing it, right?
Yeah,
And it's like that 10th thing that you do because of all the mistakes that you've made and because of all the things that you've completed. Like you learn by completing projects. And so like the thing you want to make is like the 10th thing you make, not the first one that you stress over perfecting, right? And so
right.
you just got to like keep moving, right? And it's been that way with my music. I mean, I've been into making music my whole life. I've been in bands. I was like a bass player. I was always kind of this like, the garnish of the music and sort of supporting role. And like back in 2021, I decided to finally start like producing my own music, and that kind of sent me on this wild ride of like trying to find my style and like not really knowing what I was doing. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to release these songs. I'm going to work on something else. And so it was only my most recent song, Analog, that I came up with, that I was like, you know what? This song came out the way that I tried to make it to come out. Right. And it's like, it was my 30th song, right? It wasn't
That's
my
crazy.
first album, my first song,
Yeah,
you know?
I
And
love that.
so, yeah. So this like this pen style that I had, and the embracing imperfections, and to, see something through to completion and then start the next one, like it's really ended up like applying to all my art. And that's where it started, that visual art, the pen.
Yeah,
And it, that sort of methodology and what I've learned about being an artist from that has like flowed over into all my other media, right?
for sure.
So
Yeah, of course,
yeah,
of
so
course. They're all tied. I
it
don't.
is.
I I I I feel that a lot. Uh, Artists kind of. It's not really an artist's thing. I think artists realize this more than everybody else that doesn't create things. Like everything we actually do, the whole
Mhm.
of existence itself is our artistic
It's a
performance,
practice.
interpretation, our
Yeah,
practice. Yeah, it's like
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
medicine. You
Hun-
practice it,
100%.
and
Yeah.
that's no matter what you do, man. If you're sawing wood, if you're if you're playing a musical piece on piano,
Some
if
days
you're
it's going to be
whatever.
good. Some days it's going to be good, and other days you're just going to get through it, you
That's
know?
right.
And it's like you don't sort of achieve this level that you never like regress from a little bit. It's like
Hmm.
you're always reaching for something, and sometimes you grab it and sometimes you miss, but you just keep trying to grab it. And the more you try and grab it, like the more likely you are to, or even go beyond it, right?
That's right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's a marriage there. There really
Yeah.
is, and I use that term, I think, properly.
Yeah,
I'm a married person. You're a married person.
I am. Yeah.
It is
Yep.
it is a that's art, is it
It
not?
is. Yeah, no,
That's
it's true.
to
It's
bu- to
true.
be with a person, to love a
Yeah.
person, to share all the hard stuff with a person, all the good stuff with a person.
Exactly. Cuz
That is,
cuz just like art, you have your good days, you have your bad days, you
yeah.
know. But like you guys have the same goal, and as long as
Hmm.
you have the same goal and you're always kind of working towards that, it's like you're not on the same page every single day, every single moment, but you have the same goal,
Yeah,
right?
and
And
that's
I think that's
that's
what like keeps you together, right?
that
So,
muse. Yeah, it's the
yeah.
same. It's the same thing. Like that spirit. You're trying to marry the spirit
Yeah.
of creation, and that is a well, that's a hell of an endeavor. It's a beautiful thing, and
Yeah.
when it works and it fires on all cylinders, it's
Yeah.
literally that's what we're talking about when we say passion.
Yeah.
That's what like there's no
Exactly.
better spot. Like man, when you're in a groove, like if you're caught, you're
Oh,
deep in a
I
groove.
love it.
Tell me
Yeah.
that's not. Tell me that's not being one with the damn universe. Like
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
It's amazing.
Like I
It's
can't
amazing.
imagine. I really know what it feels like to be in a groove. I can't
Yeah.
and be in that flow state. Like rhythmically, I'm like that's a
Yeah.
I speak that way better than I do with any language for sure. But like, what's it like to reach that flow state
Sure.
as as a painter? What's it like to reach that?
As a painter,
Yeah, what does that feel like? Is it in your
yeah.
strokes that you feel it? Like, where do you?
So something with painting is being able to see the colors, right? Because if you see the colors in your mind and you can translate that color into, okay, these are the things I'm going to mix together. Like, I work from like red, blue, yellow, right?
Sure,
Brown.
sure.
So I want green, I mix green, and I never want like green out of a tube green, right? Like I want that like right green that's in my mind. right?
Hmm.
And so you gotta see the color in your mind. You gotta translate that into how you make it, and like when you when you get it right, like right away, that's for me the flow in painting, right? Is I picture this color in my mind, and I'm like, yeah, this is gonna use this much yellow, this much green, you know, this much yellow, this much blue, a little bit of red, and it'll make this like perfect green, right? And I do it, it comes out the way I want, and it like, kind of right away. And a funny thing with painting for me, so I have a hard time focusing on more than one thing at once. Like some people can listen to music while they read or whatever, and
Right. Yeah.
pretty solidly I can't like listen to music while I'm doing anything. But the exception is like when I'm painting, or doing visual art, I can listen to music and do that. But there was this one time I was painting, I'm trying to listen to music, and the music was like making it so that I couldn't see the colors. Like that's the only way I can describe it. It was the weirdest feeling. It's only happened to me that once. But I'm like
Huh.
trying to paint and the music's on and I like can't picture the colors. And I'm like some wires are crossed in my mind. So like that
Yeah.
one session I didn't listen to music while I was painting, but
Man,
but usually I can.
so I'm I'm a big neuroscience buff and
Okay.
neuropsychology
Yeah.
psychology buff, and
Yeah.
I adore um like I don't know, that's like a synesthesia is like some people
Yeah.
actually do um they associate sounds and color. There was a guy
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
in school who had synesthesia, and when he heard, he had perfect pitch, um but he he saw colors when he heard chords, and that's how he
Yeah.
knew what the pitches were. You
What
know what I
chord
mean?
is
It's
that's
like
wild.
um
I have a friend who's similar to that, except people are colors, right? So
really.
he sees people as colors. And the way he describes it is it's like some sort of like his interpretation of like how they're feeling about him and their vibe. And so I'll be hanging out with him and he's like, dude, Damien, you are like yellow today, or
What a
you're like
racist. No, I'm
green.
kidding. I'm
And it's the
kidding.
weird and it's just this weird thing. And like, he's like, oh, I like you when you're yellow or whatever, because it was like the kind of manic energy, right?
So yeah,
um
so he has like a synesthesia with emotions, or like
yeah,
like
yeah, with emotions, yeah,
an emotional
exactly,
state. I mean, dude,
yeah.
there's absolutely a cellular differentiation when you're talking with somebody who is excited and happy and like
Hmm.
smiling at you, and like when
Yeah,
someone
yeah,
smiles at you and you get a dopaminergic response from that, then ta-da,
exactly,
you're changed molecularly. Like
yeah.
there's no way out of that. I don't care if you
And
want to call that like, if you feel weird or woo woo about calling that an energy, but like,
oh,
what
I
else
totally,
is that?
people have
Like,
like I'm yeah, I'm on board with that, like that. You have an energy, people like you talk to them and like you just immediately get a vibe, right?
right. And
and
of course, like
and it affects you.
it affects you. It changes the way things are. And that's not a
Yeah,
woo woo thing. I mean, that's
yeah,
literally a
yeah, no.
molecular biology thing. You're changing at in a chemical way,
And then the
based
number
on
of like
everything.
the number of like muscles you have in your face and the range of emotions that you can create with moving your face, and like how sensitive we are to like reading faces, like our brains are programmed, and we can like read those emotions, just the muscle. It just it's such a fine-tuned like variable thing. It's not like, oh, there's
You know,
only
we
four
have a,
emotions. It's like,
we
no,
have a, we have a facial recognition location in our brain. It's called
yeah,
the right fusiform gyrus, and it just
there you
stores
go, yeah, that's what
faces,
I'm
dude.
talking about.
It
Yeah.
just like holds on to people, man. And it's like, have you ever heard of Dunbar's number?
No.
Okay, Dunbar's number is roughly the amount of people that you can have
Oh,
a
like a
community.
relationship with.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
like,
Right,
and so
right.
it's about
Yeah, I get that.
150. It's about
Okay.
150, and it's correlated to the size of our brain.
You're one of mine
Um,
now.
yeah,
Who did
dude.
I like
Yeah,
who did I get rid of?
yeah.
Like
Who's
who's
coming,
not Bear
dude?
Knox is one of my
That's
150 now.
dude, legit. Like I think that some people have just like anything, I don't care if there's variability in human beings. So I don't care if it's height or if it's, width of a person or like whatever. The same thing applies like neurophysiologically. It applies with everything we are. So
Yeah.
whether your big toe is what it is, or whether your IQ is 175 or whatever, like
Yeah.
there's all sorts of variability there. And like, man, we have this capacity at 150, say, but I think
Sure.
some people have a capacity at 400. Some people have a capacity at like 700. I bet like
Yeah.
people
Right.
that are just awesome with names. There are some people that have a
Yeah.
capacity of probably
Not.
80. But like,
Luckily, you have a very easy name to remember
dude,
because
is
it's
it not?
absolutely epic.
How, dude?
I love it.
So my parents are just cool, dude. Like that's
Yeah.
all that boils down to. Like my mom really liked the football coach from Alabama named Bear Bryant a lot,
All
and
right.
so
Yeah.
um, there's some Cherokee in my family on my mom's side, so there's like a little hint of like, yeah, we
Sure.
can just call him
Yeah.
Bear.
Right.
But honestly,
My dad is sorry.
no, go
My,
ahead.
my dad's a movie guy.
Yeah,
And so I was named after two movies, The Omen and Citizen Kane.
yeah,
Right? Which is
dude.
pretty epic. I got my Hollywood names, right? And I mean, my dad's pretty bold to name me after like a character who kills his parents in the movie,
Dude,
right? Like,
tell me.
so
Yeah, no
yeah,
joke. That is that.
our
You think he
parents
gets?
liked us.
I think your dad gets a hole punch in his man card just for that.
Mm,
Like he's like,
exactly.
I'm not worried.
All right, so neuroscience, brain, you got me on one of my like favorite topics to talk
Okay,
about with
let's hear
random
it.
people is an inner monologue.
Okay.
Have you ever talked about this with people before?
So yes, some people don't have an inner monologue, and
Yes.
I, I, I try to put myself in that place, and it's difficult because I do think in words, but I also think in music, and so
So,
I maybe some people, though they don't have like a monologue where it's like linguistic, perhaps they have like they think in visuals and they think in pictures, which is it runs about half, which
so
is
I
wild.
don't have an internal monologue.
You don't have
I don't have
no
an internal
kidding.
monologue. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's
this is why
all
part of the reason I like talking about this because people are like, well, like they don't even get it. They can't like comprehend it. I was surprised the first time I found out some people do have an internal monologue, right? It's
okay.
like you've got like your thoughts
Cool.
are words, right? It like
Yeah.
blew my mind. And I'm like, what? I mean, like I get it, right? Like, you know, you have to form them into words for them to make sense,
Yeah.
right? But they just like they don't exist as words in my mind. It's just
Okay.
these sort of like formless, shapeless feelings. And like even the concept of a feeling, right, was like different because I'm talking to my buddy and he's like, "Yeah, well, I know I'm happy because like my internal monologue's saying like happy words or is saying I'm happy or like it's words in his head that's telling me like what feeling I am,
That's the
right?
interpretive framework for so many people. It's like
And
it's trained
and for
into
me,
linguistics.
like feeling to me was always like inherently wordless. Like just the concept of a feeling and the fact that some people it's not that
Mm.
same way. I'm like, well, what even like what even is it then if it's not this wordless, you know, sensation, right? Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
just
Well, there's that is so interesting because so I'm on both sides of the equation there where
sure, it's a
I
spectrum. I've heard.
there's this yeah, definitely isn't it all so
Yeah,
like you um having that feel first, that the primary
yeah,
is like this
yeah.
internal feeling of emotion.
That I
um
have to interpret.
Sure, that you have to interpret and then try to put into words, of course,
Exactly.
and for other people to like to communicate with. But it
Sure.
just like mine sometimes comes in words first, and sometimes it comes as feeling first, and then it's like
Okay.
then I go searching with a word bank to define what it is, and it's
Sure.
kind of like
Yeah.
this. It's a little game because your word bank is. I mean, there's a physiological location, prefrontal
Sure.
cortex on in the left hemisphere. That's your word bank. Like
Yeah.
if we're pulling that out, like it's not like you cease to be a human.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like we understood uh, motions and facial features and directives long before language arose, and so we're
Yeah.
older than language. Our
And
being is older than language.
and
We're good
language
at
is
feeling.
imperfect. Language
Right,
is
right,
imperfect. It's finite, right?
right.
And there's this space between words where all these like, the subtext exists, right?
Hmm.
And you're
That's right.
only ever really like approximating what you're trying to say,
That
right?
that is so. As an author, like, right,
Yeah.
you're using
Yeah.
words
Yeah.
to craft inner monologues. What's it like to craft an inner monologue being a person who doesn't have one?
Sure. Yeah, that's that's funny. I never thought of it that way. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, my characters literally have an inner monologue because yeah, they have to in a
Yeah, they
book,
have to.
right?
Right.
That is hilarious. I have never thought of that. Yes. Um I mean, I guess, right, like, if I have to communicate my thoughts to turn them into words, right?
Hmm.
And that can make it so that I have like a second before I can respond to someone. It drives my wife nuts. She like asks me a question and I don't answer her like that second because I'm like somewhere in my mind that's completely wordless and I have to process what she said. I have to remember where I was. I have to turn it into words and then respond to her. And she's like, "Hey, hello." like, um but yeah, so it, like, my thoughts become words eventually, right? And
Sure.
so I just like I'm turning that character's thoughts into words right away, right? Because like
Right.
obviously you have to use language to represent that, you know.
I feel like I feel like and I think, right? Those are almost opposed, but for me, those things, I'm gonna say this word again, and I mean it to the core of my fucking being. Those things are married, and
Mm-hmm.
if they have a troubled marriage, you're troubled. Like
Yeah, that's true.
there's like the we like to live in this like Cartesian dualist place where it's
Mm-hmm.
I think therefore I am, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
like
Right.
what that statement is, I'm not even unless I think, and that's bullshit. The body takes real offense to that because
Yeah.
without everything
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
everything that bootstrapped up
Where are the
from
thoughts coming
being,
from? If you don't
dude.
if you don't already exist, like where are those
So
thoughts coming from?
like I'm an evolutionary thinker. I think
Yeah.
that I think that we evolved. I think that that's what a universe does, is it continually
Mm-hmm.
evolves. I think consciousness itself is an energy in the universe. I think we
Yep.
call it God a lot, but that's
Sure. Yeah.
consciousness is an energy in the universe that uses some type of inert death to live. So they're
Okay.
inseparable, right? Death
Yeah.
and life are inseparable. They use each other
Yeah.
to perpetuate themselves. Bam,
Sure. Yeah.
positive and
Yeah. Yeah.
negative. Boom. We're the neutral shit in the middle. And so, like, it bootstraps up from matter, I think. So, like, the cellular organisms that arise to become this fucking thing talking to you right now, like,
Yeah.
don't forget to give it credit.
Yeah.
It's really, it showed up before I think did,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Exactly.
if we don't
Exactly.
pay homage to that, and like remember to breathe deep and remember to
And
like
to
care about ourselves a little, then we don't
yeah.
think anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There needs to be an us to think. And to tie this, like, great way to tie it back into the art, right? Like evolution, the idea of having to complete something in the name of making the next thing better. I mean, that's evolution right there,
That's what it. Yeah,
right?
that's right. That's right. We
You
do
know,
it. We
you need to have a life, you need to have a creation, you need to have a death, and you need to move on to the next thing.
Yeah,
And then you're going to keep making it better. It's going to evolve. It's, it's that's the
that's right. Yeah,
exact
that's right.
same thing as the art right there.
It's
So,
totally true. Yeah, something has to be put into existence and die
yep, yeah,
to beget something else, and that's
exactly.
yeah. Artists are just the biological creatures that act this universal play out over and over
Yeah,
and over again.
yeah,
And if we don't do it, we're like we die. We get
yeah.
depressed. It
And
sucks.
you don't perfect it with one organism, right? Like,
No, I can't. I don't think.
that one organism's going to be as good as it can be, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's going to maybe give birth to something else, but it's,
Okay, okay. So, question then.
okay. I love this enthusiasm, man. I'm feeling you're talking about energy and people, like you got this energy. I love
Shit,
it.
I'm knocking my microphone away. All right, so think about it. All right, so I'm gonna put you in a mental space that like you're gonna. It's a logical jump off point from where we
Sure.
are.
Okay.
Like we're both happy that evolution is occurring and we live it and we're artists and we like it and we do it. So
Yeah.
that being said, did the biological creature that we are, our type, our kind, our species, just create our evolutionary step with AI that's going to just kill us, eat us, and
Oh my
move on
God.
to the next step? Or
Yeah.
is, I mean, even if it does kill us, does it persist? Does consciousness move into the digital world? Does it replace this type of creature?
I
You know,
don't I don't think it's ever going to replace it. So we talked about this. Part of my homework for this was to watch this episode of Joe Rogan with Mark Zuckerberg, right?
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And the lots of thoughts on that whole episode, but the one that I think that I resonated with is Zuckerberg was like, "Look, AI is a tool, and like it's gonna make some things obsolete or whatever, but it has the potential to make our lives better, right? By freeing us up to do other things. Like his example was like before, whatever 1900, like most people were farmers because they needed to make their own food so they could eat. But then technology gave us industrial farming, for better or for worse, and
Yeah,
made it so
true.
that, a few people can make food for everyone,
Hmm.
right? And so people didn't have to be farmers anymore. So they were free to like, you know, create new jobs and make art and like do all this stuff, sort of freeing up humanity, right? So he's like he had a very democratizing view of AI, like, yeah, give everyone this tool, right? Let AI do the stuff that we don't want to do, and it's going to free us up to make more whatever. And I like that's the first time I've ever heard someone frame AI in a way where I was like, okay, I can kind of see the vision there of how it could benefit us. I don't think AI is ever going to have like consciousness. It's going to be able to trick people into thinking that it's sentient, or, by mimicking language and the big language models that it's like gathered over time, but I don't know. I don't see it like really becoming this like singularity that outpaces, humans or makes us obsolete. I hate, you know, uh, content generation AI. I think that's the worst like abomination like use of that technology, right? People who
Yeah.
think that they can be artists by writing in a couple words. And it's funny, I got into so many fights on threads about this with
Oh
people,
yeah.
and some guy was like, oh, it's like it's a lot of work. You have to learn the right language, and you have to learn what each model is good at, and like it takes a lot of time, to really get it to make stuff good. I'm like, wow, man, that must have taken you like decades to learn, right? Because it was
So
so hard,
so
right? And he's
check
like,
this out.
fuck you, man.
Check this out. Check this out. So I'm willing to give some grace. Okay.
Okay,
I, like
fair.
let I'll say, all right. Having a good grip of a language helps you speak to a large language model
Sure.
machine and have it
Yeah.
spit back things, and you can
Yeah.
be better at using that than other people. So there is like a
Yeah.
skill. The skill, right,
Yeah.
is verbal IQ ultimately. And like there is some utility in that for sure. Like I in
But
the
content creation isn't it? And I'm sorry
Right,
to
I agree.
interrupt you, but I have like a point on this, right?
Sure, sure,
The
sure.
best explanation of it, right, is content creation in AI is idea based. It's putting all your faith into like an idea is the be all end all, right? So you come up with this great idea and you turn it into a words and you give it to a large language model and they create whatever that idea that AI's interpretation of it. But as an artist who actually makes things, right?
Yeah.
I know that the value in something is not the idea, it's in the execution of the idea, right? Like, and you tell me, right? How many times has a song like not come out the way that you imagined, but better because you figured out new things along the way,
Oh,
right?
definitely multiple times, and that
In
that
the
is a
process of
great point.
creating it, it makes it a better thing than you imagined at the end,
Yeah,
right? And
certainly.
so, like, when you take out that entire step of like executing the idea, learning as you go, solving problems, like figuring it out, being like, oh my God, this, like, I can't believe I thought that like this was the right way to go. And now that I'm like halfway through it, I'm like, yes, this is like, and this eureka moment happens, and you're like, this is great, right? And then you end up with this amazing piece of art that you created, right? That transcends that original idea. And not having the skill to like bring something artistically into the world, you get stuck on like, oh, I got this great idea, and like, and that's the only thing that matters. And it's like, no, an idea is a starting point, right? But that's all it is, right? It's a starting point. And
That's
there are
right.
good starting points and there are bad starting points, sure, and like when I have a really good idea, I fall in love with it like a new love, right?
Right.
And that sort of carries me through. And then, that new sort of exciting love that I have turns into, okay, I'm starting to see it progress. And then I like to see what I'm doing. And then it evolves. And then I'm like, okay, I got to get this across the finish line. I can't wait to get this out into the world, you know? And like, it's this process, it's this like love language that, you start a project, you fall in love with the idea, you fall in love with what you're making, and then you love it so much that you have to finish it to get it out into the world. And when you put it out there and like, you know, one person sees it and they're like, man, that was awesome. It just like, it like releases all that. And you're like, yes, this is why I do this. Right. And I think AI just completely misses the entire core of like creating something. And I mean, I forget who said it, but someone was like, yeah, it creates semi compelling screensavers,
Yes,
right?
that is a great. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's.
I wish I could
Damn,
credit who
that
said
is
that.
okay.
Yeah, but
Whoever
I'm like,
said that, nice,
yeah,
Damien.
yeah.
Good. Keep use
In the
that some
notes of
more.
this, we're gonna credit that quote.
If we
Okay,
find that
when you
thing,
put,
it's going
yeah,
on. Yeah.
yeah,
So, okay, everything you said, I am on board with. I'm in the
yes,
boat and I'm helping you row. I'm totally there.
I
Um,
love it.
um, remember, I'm giving grace. Okay, so,
It's more
um,
than I'm willing to give, but go on.
so you are. I think that you love the human for what the human is, and
Yes,
you believe it to be sacred, and like the human is not just, it's not just the brain, it's not just the thoughts inside or the potentialities that can be recognized by the brain, because
it's
I
the
think that's what's going on.
imperfections.
Yeah, I think you're, it's what comes out of the hands, it's what comes out of the whole nervous system, the whole being itself
Yeah,
channeling
yeah,
with the universe, exteriorly, and putting something forward. So you know there is there's that component where the artist has to engage in every element, and that's the art, that's what's happening, that the whole being, the carnal
yeah.
thing is happening, and that's the art, and that's oftentimes that's what we're appreciating, is the fact that the human is doing it.
It's
um
the imperfections, the build up, and the problem solving, the learning.
and I do see that element in some of the AI use, and I'll explain how. So
Okay.
the no matter what you feed an AI, you're going to have to feed it and talk to it and get it to do something akin to what you're looking for. And most of the time, it's not going to be what you're looking for. And so you have to
Yeah,
feed
but
it and
in
feed it and
AI,
feed it.
it's you get a hand with like 8 fingers, right? That's the
No, absolutely.
imperfections in AI.
Absolutely. Yeah, you'll get weird stuff. And not only will you get weird stuff, like as AI gets better and better and better and better and
Yeah.
better, I'm sure it won't make these like little goof ups anymore. That's we're seeing that happen in real time, which is so amazingly fast. It hurts. But like, yes, it removes the the human element, the entirety of the artist, because it's a machine like that you're feeding
Copying.
things and it's copying and it's throwing stuff back at you, and like there's this interplay
Yeah.
between what it is and what you are, and it reminds me of like early synthesizers. There was a Queen record that came out years and years ago, and it says no synthesizers were used on this album because they were very proud of the fact that they played everything,
Yeah.
with their fingers. And like
Yeah.
people use sequencers, and that was long in the music industry, or drum machines. Like drum
Yeah.
machines, their replacement drums are really really good now. You could fire a
Yeah.
lot of
And
drummers
now we
for
have
sure.
DAWs and all kinds
Right.
of built-in,
And so like
electronic
I'll
things.
I'll I'll take a look at that, and I will say, like, with drum machines and synthesizers and like sync like step sequencers, uh
Yeah.
all of these things, you can use them, but it's a part of the
But
texture. It's a part of the tool.
okay.
Like I see
But
AI as a tool. Some people
the
aren't using it like that though. They're using it to
my
just say like, "Oh,
my
I'm."
problem with it
Mhm.
my problem with it, right, is content creation like content creating AI is using copyrighted work and just
Yes.
plagiarizing it.
Yep.
Like a synthesizer, you're still the one who's making that melody,
That's right.
you're
That's right.
creating the rhythm. All of the content that you're creating is still original that the human is creating,
Yep.
right? And the synthesizer, yeah, it's a tool that some people were against and whatever, you
Yep.
know, and but the human was still creating those rhythms and melodies, right? And
That's
that's
right.
the difference. And AI content creation, it uses copyrighted material,
It
right?
steals.
And
It does,
it's
dude.
just
It steals.
copying and rehashing stuff. And like I could see under the right circumstances what you're saying, like, okay, so AI is one of the tools that you use as an artist to achieve some end goal that is mostly human input, right? And I kind of see that's maybe where your argument's going, but like I would say only if it was somehow not using any copyrighted data, right? And like my dad, I talk to him endlessly about AI because he's very like pro AI and he loves
Okay.
creating things in like
Okay.
Mid Journey or whatever, and
Yeah.
these ridiculous like AI generated images, and he says, well, artists are just using the information that they've gathered and learned, all the art that they've seen, and
Yeah.
they're just and like kind of
That is
right,
how we
but
learn.
the
I mean, yeah,
kind
it's
of
true.
but the human memory is imperfect, right?
Sure.
And although we may like be influenced by a vibe that is kind of leading some sort of art we're making, like my album that I'm currently working on, I got 10 tracks that are in works, right? And they've got like a 9 Inch Nails Aphex Twin vibe, right? And those
Mhm.
are two big artists that I'm into, and like, but I'm not like copying a single song, right?
Right.
It's just a
Right.
feeling that I have, and I don't know, like I couldn't reproduce any of their music like visually, like writing out the notes on a ledger or whatever, like
Sure.
I couldn't do that. So I'm not like copying it. There's a vibe which I feel in my heart because I've listened to a lot of their music,
Right.
and that's kind of how it's coming out, and I can feel it. But like human memory is imperfect, right?
Right.
And I using that as a starting point, right? I'm like, okay, if I was gonna create my own AI that I said was like acceptable for people to use, this is how it would be, right? So first of all, no copyrighted data, right? Everything that is in the model is like stuff that's been allowed to be used, either open source, open public domain, or people that are like, yeah, I want to get in on this, right?
Yep.
I want there to be settings like knobs that you can change with no labels. You don't know what they do, right?
Okay.
I want every piece of information that's put in there to be slightly corrupted or mislabeled, right? And I want you to be able to, type in, I want it to do this, but the AI's memory of each piece is imperfect or maybe not labeled properly. And there's some setting in the, in your controls where, you've got like a knob that you turn with no label that just does something that you don't know, right?
Sure.
And so it imperfectly recreates like what you're trying to do and ends up creating something that's like not exactly what you wanted, but you kind of controlled in some way. And then it creates something, based on an imperfect memory of a set of data that is all like open domain, right? Like that's my idea of like an AI tool that I can get behind as someone who makes copyrighted material, right? And as someone who respects the like creative process. Cause it's like, I picture, in your DAW, you get like a synthesizer, with like 100 knobs on it, and they're all like labeled something weird. And you only figure out what it does by like, having a drum beat and like turning it slightly one way and the other and hearing how the pitch changes or whatever. I
Hmm.
picture like my AI with some like wild input of knobs that you can twist. You don't know what any of the knobs do until you like twist them all. And like it's doing all, like for me, that's like an interesting tool. And as long as none of it's copyrighted and it's doing things that you can control, but you don't know exactly how it's going to come out, then that's my image for an AI tool that I that I would accept as an artist.
I Okay, I see where you're coming from with that. I see where you're coming from with that because you're a creator and you like the creative process. I
Yeah,
think I think a lot of AI people are just straight up hobbyists that kind of want to see some
yeah,
stuff. Now, I of course there are people that are trying to pass off like themselves as
real artists.
legitimate AI artists because they type some words in. People trying to pass themselves off as real AI artists, or real artists that use AI. Like, I don't want to say that it's not real, but I just know what you're doing, and I'm not that impressed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly,
That's. I don't
exactly.
mind you calling yourself an AI artist. I just don't care, and that's why I think
I
that
just don't care.
like
Exactly.
that's why I think
Yeah,
AI I
yeah.
don't think AI is going to rid the world of the human artist because, like, I
No,
like the fact that the human is creating it, and that's part of the appeal. It's like that's part of
exactly.
the universal stimulus. Is I'm interested by the fact that the human created this, and like, if an AI human interface like got together and made something really cool, if it's really cool, then it's really cool. Um,
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. I'm totally with you in regard to like uh, it not utilizing copyrighted material or material just
exactly.
blatantly lifted. But at the same time, like it can be perfect. It can be as perfect as you want it to be. But how perfect can you really get a machine with words? Words are imperfect anyway, so it'll
Yeah.
never be perfect. It's like you can call what an AI does perfect if you want to, but
I
I
mean,
don't.
I've seen photographers use AI to almost identically recreate one of their photographs that was lifted by AI.
What was
Right?
the
Side by side is like this guy with a polar bear and like the aurora borealis over it,
Yeah,
right? And he's like, one of these is my copyrighted photo, and
right.
one of these is generated using a large language model. They look,
And
I mean,
that,
they're
yeah,
different, right? It's like a slightly different pose polar bear
yeah.
and a slightly different shape of the aurora borealis in the sky, but they both look realistic and they both look identical. And you're
And
like,
that's
okay,
and that'll
this
that'll
thing only
totally
exists, right? Because this guy's photo was stolen.
right.
You know what I
And
mean? And I'm like,
that
or
takes the
like
food out
people
of the artist's
generating,
mouth.
just taking, it like can mimic a perfect image of Mickey Mouse.
Yep.
It's like the only reason it can do that is because it's directly copying
Yep.
copyrighted material. And
That's
like, I
right.
just, yeah, like you said, not impressed. Not
Yeah,
impressed. And it's
yeah.
so prevalent. Like, so I'm about to release a book probably next week. It's a novella I just wrote, and
Okay.
now like I'm self-publishing it on Amazon, and now when you release a book, you have to say like I relied on AI in the creation of the images of this book, like the cover or the content of the book. You have to say that now. And then like for
Okay.
music on, I don't know
That's
if you
important.
use Submit Hub. Have you ever used Submit
I
Hub?
don't. I don't use Submit Hub. Mm-mm.
So on there, when you're submitting songs to curators, you have to say I used AI or I didn't use AI in the creation of this song.
Yeah, I
So
think you're having to do that for any releases at this point. But
yeah,
yeah, dude, that's
it's wild.
good. Like you should have to do
Yeah,
that. Like,
exactly. You should
um,
fess up.
yeah, because I don't know how the licensing is going to work in the future, or how they're going to like figure this out in regard to the music business or any business really. But people are out here creating and putting in the work to do the creations, and then something like AI can just blatantly take it. It's happening all over the music world. It's happening
Mm.
all over the photography world, like you were saying. Like, it does. It we were really hoping that AI was going to come for like
Accountants.
the bank ledgers and the yeah, right,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Right, and
I'm
so
glad we both had the same
and
thought
that
there.
that would have been
Yeah,
super fucking cool.
yeah.
And and it's coming for them too, but it's there's a lot of people that are
I
going
will.
to experience you know economic displacement, and I don't know if that's like a new feeling for artists because we're always kind of fucked. but,
Yeah,
but
it's like,
but
yeah,
like
take my $17 I've made off of Spotify in the entire, like the past 4 years. Sure, right?
God
You
knows,
know,
right? But that's I think that will actually lead to like a pendulum swing. I think in the consumer's mind is that something is so readily available and good and awesome
yeah.
and all this stuff, and
I just, I
it'll
would
get
be,
gross quickly, I think, and they'll
yeah, I
lean
would
back
be
toward the
more worried
artist.
if it was making good art. I would be more worried,
Yeah.
right? But it
Yep.
it seems to like the quality of what AI can produce seems to only be impressing the people who are using AI. And like any real artist or real consumer of art is like, yeah, that kind of looks a little fuzzy. That person has like 18 fingers on one hand, like that chessboard has a weird number of like squares that I saw this. I see them on Facebook all the time. There was this like realistically rendered like cabin in the woods, and there was like a peak at the top of the house, and it looks like a photo. It looked pretty realistic, but the way the windows met at the point, it like didn't connect. It's
Okay.
like you either have like this domed window or like a window with an angle built into it that has no ridge. It was clearly AI generated, and like no one was laughing at it on Facebook. I was like, this is just blatantly AI, and people are like eating it up. And I'm
Yep.
like, you just got to look a little I'm sure there were other signs too, but I'm like that window at the top of the house at the point of the roof,
How
was like
man,
that couldn't exist.
I think it's gonna get give it 5 years or so. I think it's gonna get like the propaganda's gonna come hard, brother. like like
Yeah.
I don't know what they're gonna be able to fake in the next decade with something like that. And I mean, like, all of the art of all of the demolishing artists aside that AI is like that does bring with it, like that there's a definite threat with it, but um just the technical stuff, the technical jobs, they really do, like, you run into an issue when it's like, hey, um we don't have to go on location to get the over the desert air shot, anymore to film this
Yeah.
movie. Like
Uh,
that, when that saves a production studio like $200,000, like they're
yeah,
saving
they're
that
gonna
money.
do that.
And
Yeah.
I'm not mad at them for doing it, and that's maybe a good potential use, but at the same
But like,
time,
okay, so
it
so hear me out, right? If that studio has a bunch of stock photo that they own, because like,
yep.
say you're a recording studio and you're like, shit, we got some actors, we're doing this movie, we're in the desert. While we're here, we're gonna take a million photos of everything,
Yeah.
right? and then they have their database that they create their own large language model based on images that they own. So the next time they have a movie, they're like, yeah, okay, I'm going to use AI to generate this
to build the
background
yeah
because we own all this content, right? Awesome. That's AI as a tool, right?
yeah
And using
for
it as
sure.
a tool as part of your creative project. I think that's a great use of it,
I
you
think it
know?
becomes I think it becomes if you're gonna try to house it in something like an industry, then yeah, AI is just gonna have to start like it's going to have to start licensing everything that it utilizes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's perfectly reasonable and should certainly be a part of the new corporate structure moving forward. Hopefully that
Yeah.
happens.
I hope so.
Hopefully that some law is going to have to show up for this if we're going to try to make it not economically unviable, because it can't just have everything for free, and people that actually create things that AI takes from need to live. So
Yeah.
like there's a bunch of rigmarole with it, man, and like I know that I'm not in it's I can't it can't be removed from existence at this point. I don't think.
It's a tool. It's a tool. I don't think AI should be removed. I think it has the power to make people's lives better. I think used as a tool in certain ways, it's amazing. Like, being able to look at a million, x-rays and being able to tell with 99% certainty if someone has like a tumor that like doctors
Yeah,
miss at an
yeah,
80% rate, right?
right,
Amazing, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
like being able to pick up on minute things like that, AI as a tool. Or like, we talked about a production studio using their
Hmm.
licensed images to create something, as long as it does it well in a compelling way, right? But just the idea of it using copyrighted material without crediting the artist, like,
Yeah, man,
is a no
that
go for me,
sucks. I'm
right?
I'm totally in
That's
agreement with you.
content creation. Like, I'm not impressed. I don't think it's good yet, right? But like using copyrighted material, I have no respect for any AI artist that
Yeah,
uses a large language model to create content as of right now, you
yeah.
know? But like another use of it that I can get behind, Adobe Photoshop
Hmm.
has an AI tool in it, right? And it uses a library of photos that Adobe owns, and it's entirely trained off of Adobe's photos, and a Photoshop user can use it to like perfectly trace around someone's head and put a different background behind them, or like cut
Yeah,
this thing out of the background, or like
right.
that is AI as a tool,
Sure.
right? Which I can get behind. You
Same
know what I
here.
mean?
Yeah. Well,
So
I mean, I use AI as a tool. Like I use the captions app when I like do social media, and that thing
there you
just
go.
it listens to you, and it
Yeah.
puts the words up for you.
Yeah.
And like,
Love it.
yeah, every now and again you got to go in and like make an edit or whatever. But it's like that's a great use. When I did the song Adventure Home, the official music video for that um was I mean, it's AI. We used like three AIs to like make like we put them all together. Like we got a giant like illustration. We drew a couple of illustrations, fed it to an AI, and let it like iterate the damn thing over and over and over again. Um, and like we fed that into, I think, I can't even remember all the different ones. Myself and my editor Austin, we filmed me like walking around and stuff, like playing guitar, and we fed the video footage into an AI. We typed out a bunch of words to an AI, and then we tried to get it to like mesh together. Um,
So
and then we
using it
did,
as a tool on your content that you created.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Okay.
But like there's no way that that it didn't pull from like comic
Sure.
books that are definitely in existence. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it obviously it had to. I don't know other. It had to be trained on something.
Yeah.
Um, but like the uh the video was pretty cool. It turned out pretty cool. And it's like it was pretty early AI because this was what 2023, I guess, or maybe I think it was 2023.
Yeah.
And so it was just getting up to snuff to like be able to take a video and render. It took,
Do
dude,
something to it.
it took 30 30 hours to render that video. I mean,
Wow.
it was a big thing. Because
Yeah.
once um, we fed the initial like comic book renderings like in, and like we had like a generator do like 30 or 40 images at a time, and then like
Hmm.
I took one or two or three or four of them and then like put them in and had to reiterate that again, and we did it like, I mean, it took me days. It was like 1,000
Sure.
some odd
Yeah.
images because they had to like flash in the background, and
Okay.
so and you wanted it to mold like gel into the next scene, you know, and
I'll have to
so
check it out. I haven't seen it.
it's cool. It's a cool video, man. But it's like, you know, when we did that video, like I thought, and Austin and I talked about it a lot. It was like, we're using AI. Like, is this like we're, said obviously like, hey, this is AI. There's AI video, AI gen video. Like, um, there was another video that inspired me to do it. Oh crap, I can't think of the band name. Um, it's a what are they call it, Zeph. They say they do Zeph. I can't think of the band name. It's a guy and a girl. They're like, I think they're South African rappers. They were in the movie Chappie together. Um,
No
I can't
idea.
I can't think of the name of the band. Anyway, regardless, they had an AI video, and it was really cool. It was a well done
Yeah.
thing, and so it kind of
I mean,
inspired me.
it's sure. Yeah. I mean,
And
it was early on kind of, it was a thing that everyone was playing around with at some point,
yeah,
and like, yeah, I haven't used AI to generate stuff like that. I do use AI, Lander,
yeah,
the Lander
yeah,
plugin,
yep.
right? It's like an AI mastering software. I
Yeah,
don't think it uses like copyrighted material to master your tracks, but like that's I mean, really the only case of AI that I use in my
I
creative
think
process is just
I think that
mastering my tracks,
I think
So it's a
Lander's a
tool.
I think Lander's a good tool. I mean, it's modeled every mastered song for the last forever and ever and ever, and has figured out like, roughly the best way to do it. Or like Ted Jensen is a super famous mastering engineer at Sterling Sound in
Yeah.
New York City, and that's like, it's so many of the mixes that you ever hear in the world anyway, like ran through his mastering chain. I mean, that's not a copyrightable thing. It's a tool set, Like,
Right.
I don't have any problem with people using that for their mastering services, but it also it changes the face of the industry. Like the mastering engineers that like, I use the Audio Animals in London, and like those dudes, they have a beautiful studio. They have amazing gear, amazing analog gear that like real engineers make. They sit and they like
Yeah.
solder these things together, like real human
Yeah.
endeavor to make these beautiful pieces of audio gear. And then these, like Nick Birchall's my mastering engineer, like that guy sits there and really listens to that shit and really
I
turns
know.
some knobs, and it's like,
I mean, that's
I
that's the price I'm paying ultimately, is that my song isn't gonna come out as well, right?
well,
And
I don't
like,
know. I don't think that that's exactly true anymore. Like, it's not that it won't come out as well. It just comes out different. And that's
yeah,
not a bad thing. There are
yeah,
some people that say
yeah,
that the AI masterer is better than a human. And
yeah,
maybe that's true,
yeah,
dude. Maybe if that
maybe,
happens, it happens. But like, um, I hope that I like all the old analog gear. I think it's like super cool. You know what I mean? And I
yeah,
want that stuff to like remain in business. And it's like this. It's
yeah,
a kind of a strange thing that you have to vote those things into existence with your money, and like try to give into the industry with
yeah.
your hard earned money or
Music is
whatever.
like music is your main art form, right?
Right, but you're
Music
investing in
is
1,000
music is
things.
like my fifth art form, right?
Yeah,
Like I make music because it's fun to make music, and not
yeah.
because I am sure that I'll ever make money off my music,
Well,
right?
I mean,
And so like,
either way, you're
my
investing. Look at your mic there. Like
yeah, yeah, right.
you're in
Yeah, I mean,
there.
because
Like,
there's stuff that you do have to invest in,
that's
right?
right.
but like, like I'm writing a novel right now, which I'll hopefully be done by the end of the year, but that's going to cost like thousands of dollars to edit,
Yep.
right? And you need an editor for a big book like that because they can help you with the whole, just like taking a book as an entire thought and being like, this is my feeling, this is what you should change, this is that, they sort of guide you and push you in a direction and be like, okay, I think this is what you're going for, but like this is how it's coming out, right?
Yeah.
Sort of thing,
Yeah.
and you need that human element. And just like putting my novel into, an AI thing, letting it fucking train off my data, no thank you. But like having it be like, oh, well, this is the punctuation you got wrong, right?
Yeah.
That's not what an editor does, And like
Right.
I think a similar thing that like an audio engineer who's actually mastering your track, they can like hear your track and be like, this is the way that it should sound,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas like I'm trusting an algorithm, I'm like tweaking some knobs at the end to see, but like I don't know if it's mastering my like Nine Inch Nails track as like an R&B track, or if it's like, whatever, you know what I mean?
It's
But
funny.
it
It's
just
funny that like it always the ultimate like I don't know, I guess um existentialist thought process on it would really be that no matter what you use to get the art to come out, if it's you use a mastering engineer, use a mastering software and editor, a software that is an editor of some sort, like really no matter what, like I think if you're being true to being an artist, like at the end of the day the responsibility is yours, man. Like
yeah,
when I get the
having a
final thing,
vision.
when I get the final thing back from mastering, like I'm gonna listen to it, and if I don't think it's better, then it's not done. And so it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
and it's the
yeah.
same thing with you. Like even if you get something back from the editor and they're like, "This is how it goes," you might be like, "No, it isn't."
No, no.
Like, and so like
Yeah,
there are improvements
exactly. Yeah,
that can be made, but ultimately to agree to something being an improvement is the artist's call there, and it's like uh, God knows it's putting art out into the world is like you're saying, it's a thousands of dollars. Like this is a real freaking process.
hmm
That's what this show
yeah,
is supposed to demonstrate. It's like,
exactly.
I'm talking
Yeah,
about using mastering engineers, like people. The Daniel Ek on Spotify CEO is talking about um, the cost of music production is basically free, so you can just put music out all
fuck
you want
that.
to all the time. It's like, dude, no, you cannot. Like
Yeah,
that is such an asinine statement. Like, yes, you
and
can
like
put out something, but it's like to be to be to care enough about it to like go and invest and try to get good things, try to get nice instruments, try to put things together very nicely and use things that you care about and
exactly.
use
And like
like
you said at the beginning of this, right? Like the entire like creative spark, getting in touch with that like sense of God,
yes,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
to like bring something into the world. And for someone who's never made anything in their life to say that, music is free, it's like, no, this is like something I've created from my soul. I've tapped into the fucking universe
yeah,
to like
yeah.
create something from nothing,
It's no big
right?
deal, man.
And you're telling me like, oh yeah, well, microphones only cost like 20 bucks now, so like, oh, it's nothing, It's like,
Hey,
fuck
man,
you, buddy.
if you
Fuck you.
enjoy it, man, if you enjoy it, you should just do it
Yeah.
for free, dude. Like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
well, I mean,
Uh,
how many of us are out here really? I mean, we do it for free. We don't actually. You know what, dude? We don't do it for free. We do it at the cost of our like
yeah.
of our monetary like health half the time. Like,
Yeah.
we're like
and
that's
our
what.
like physical and emotional health as well.
Yes, yes, exactly. So that's something that is I don't know. It's just it's a funny and like just a goofy ass way of looking at an industry. Some mega corporation whose product is music, to view music
Mhm.
like that as the CEO of that company. And it's a tech company. I get it.
Yeah.
Um, But
And
Jesus, man.
they use that to justify how little they pay artists. Like it just,
Yeah.
you know, it's like
Well,
they're
I,
talking themselves out of a corner, you know.
for me, I have cognitively reframed the whole empire of streaming. I really like, I don't look at streaming services as a place by which you will make any money at all. I think of
Sure.
them like a billboard. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm in business. I have a small business. I run a gym facility in my
Hmm.
town, and like I'm a personal trainer. I'm a nutrition counselor. Like I'm like it, I have to tell people that I exist. I have to be like, "Hello, I'm a trainer and I'm a
Hmm.
nutrition counselor and
Hmm.
I own a gym and you should come to my gym." And like I have to say all
Yeah.
of those things, and I also have to pay like the air conditioner bill, you know what I'm saying? Like I have to
Sure.
keep
Yeah.
the lights
Right.
on, and it's like if I want the lights to turn on, I'm going to spend a couple of $1,000 to do that every month no matter what. And
Yeah.
it's like
Exactly.
for artists that are like, "Oh man, like I put my song here, you better be fucking paying me all the money." It's like, well, like there's a platform for you to go and put it on. That's really cool. That's just like a
Yeah.
luxury that we get to have. But like for
True.
people to want to purchase your music, to purchase your art from you, like
Yeah. Right.
that's I think that's really the only way forward. I don't think most people are going to get enough
Or
money out of
if
streaming.
you're a touring artist and you're selling concert tickets,
Yeah,
you
and
know.
if you've been pushed hard enough on a streaming service, then that seems to be the
Yeah.
next avenue in
Sure.
the business. But it's like I
Yeah.
do want people to get paid for their recordings. I really, really do. I don't think it's fair what Spotify's doing, but I also am having to deal with the economic reality of the situation, and that is
Sure.
I need to pay enough money to get an audience to hear this stuff, and that's
Yeah.
the price of
And it's
advertising.
a platform.
And
Yeah.
if you're,
Okay.
I don't care if you're a shoe salesman, like you got to buy your stock first before you, and it's expensive to get into business. And the music
Yeah.
business is not different. And I think that's a bitter pill for a lot of artists to chew on
Yeah.
because they don't
Hmm.
think like business people, they think like artists, and that's wonderful.
Sure.
But they often fail because of that element.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not that they're
I succeed because I'm not trying to make money off of my music.
and that's yeah, that's true too. It's like
I can
like
disconnect from it just because like I make so many different kinds of art. Like my most sort of commercially successful avenues are my books, which
cool.
I sell, and I sell a handful of prints off of Etsy every year.
That's
You
awesome.
know, my music, I
That's the
think I've
model,
made
man.
like $19 in
Yeah,
4 years, but I love making music,
for
right?
sure.
And so I just keep doing it because like I come up with ideas for stuff and I'm like, yeah, this idea is a piece of music. So like
Hmm.
I'm gonna make like I'm really into the album that I'm making right now, and it feeds my soul,
So
you
I'm
know?
stoked
And
on that.
like
You say you got 10 tracks coming out, right?
10 tracks, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
goddamn.
I'm hoping to
I'm
finish
excited.
them before I get back on finishing my novel. So like probably next week my novella's coming out. In the meantime, I'm working on this album. I've got like one song that's completely done, this wild instrumental track, and I've got 9 songs at varying levels of completion. Like some is just like a drum beat and like a killer riff, you know.
Yeah.
Other ones are like I've got the full structure of the song, I just need to put lyrics to it, you know, kind of everything in between. And yeah, I like it, and this is where my mind's at right now. I'm often at the mercy of like this is what my mind wants to work on right now. I can't
Yeah.
always choose, right? But my mind is like in music right now, and so that's what I'm creating, and I'm hoping to ride that until this album's done, and then I'll release it.
Okay, so since you're in that mindset, since you're in the music making mindset,
Sure.
let's shift gears a little bit and actually get into some of that process for you. So
Yeah. Okay.
when you're in the music making process, um, how do you go about that? Like,
All right.
do you think in full songs, or do you think in like
No.
sections? It's like sections of songs, or like riffs come to
So
your mind?
a lot of the way that my songs come to fruition is open up my DAW. I almost, except for my album Up in Flames from 2022, where I played my bass guitar on it.
Hmm.
That's like the only instance where I've like played an actual instrument on my music. It's all entirely digital. I scroll through my drum kits until I find one that I like the sound of the kick drum. I create like a kick drum rhythm. And then I start like putting the other layers of the electronic drum kit on top of that kick drum. And when I get this like cool beat, right, then I find an instrument, a synthesizer or whatever, piano, and then I'll create a melody over that. And then I'll like tweak, like I use a lot of distortion on this album that I'm working on right now. And so then I'll take that instrument and I'll throw some like fucking pedals on it and tweak those knobs until it's this like really gnarly kind of like, growling like sound.
Yeah.
And then like a lot of my music has like several melodies playing over each other.
Right.
So I'll like create a bunch of melodies to that same rhythm, and then I'll try and put them on top of each other in different instruments. And sometimes they like work together, sometimes they don't. And so then I just sort of create this whole like, vibe, a couple instruments, my drum beat. And then in my mind, I like try and picture like, where is this going? Right. And I sort of try and sense in my mind, it goes from like, I've been in the create something from nothing mode, right? Where I'm just like putting things together and building something, right? And so now I've got my 10 songs. I'm like transitioning from that mode into the like, let's build this thing mode where
Okay.
I listen to that like little snippet that I created over and over again. And I just picture in my mind and I'm like, yeah, this is the next thing that needs to happen, right?
Okay.
And so then I build that next thing that needs to happen. And then I do that a couple times. And then maybe I say, okay, now I've done like, intro, verse, chorus. Maybe I go back to the verse. Maybe I do some like combination of like the verse, but like a different like melody on top of it or something completely different. And then like I slowly sort of take sections that I've made and either, go back to them, modify them, do something completely different until I have like this whole arc of a song start to finish, and I can listen to that whole thing and I'm like, yeah, that's a song,
Right.
right? And so yeah, I have like creating something from nothing, building from that something, and arranging sections until the music is an entire thought,
So
and then I
do
create
you
lyrics for it.
do you move um so you move from song, you bounce between songs as you're going through this process? So say you have like a verse one over here, and you have like your kick drum set and your drums are set and you got like your bass set and you're good to go there, and now like you maybe have some lyrics for that verse but the chorus isn't worked out quite yet, and then you'll change songs and work on a new song and then come back to that one. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm gonna jump back and forth between all these songs until they're done.
Okay.
I mean, you know firsthand as a musician, your ears get tired,
That's
right?
right.
And
Absolutely.
so I need to. It's almost harder when I'm working on a single, a single, because like you only have that one song and like you get tired and then you have to not listen to it for a week before you can work on it again and really like hear
That's
it.
true. That's
But
true.
you're working on an album and you can be like, oh, I just spent like 3 hours, tweaking like this one thing of this one song to try and get it perfect, and then it just all sounds like mush to you. And so I'm going to work on this other song for a few days and then go back to that other one. And like it's just sort of this organic thing. And I used to get really stressed about like trying to keep all my like ducks in a row and to like do it perfectly, get it done as quickly as possible, to feel like I was in control.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
and now I just like, it's like, molding a lump of clay, and I just like a huge lump of clay, and like I'm going to work on this section, I'm going to work on that, and I'm not thinking about the entire thing like all at once all the time. I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to like scroll through every like fucking synthesizer and play it over what I've got right now for the next like hour, and like, and that's it. And maybe that's all I get done in a session. Or like I made this post on Threads a while ago. Like the difference between writing a book and making music is like when I sit down to write, I have like a chunk of time, hour and a half. I write a
I saw
thousand
that. Yeah.
words, and like that's my like progress. I got 1,000 words of progress, and that's it. But like music, right? I can sit there like fucking tweaking a hi-hat for 2 hours and be like, nah, that doesn't work, and just delete it. And then like I have nothing to show for my 2 hours.
Yeah,
Except for
that's
that,
true.
like I definitely know that hi-hat doesn't work. You know what I
That's
mean?
right. Hey,
Like
dude, valuable though, right? Like
yeah.
that, man. That's when I am constructing. That is a um, I don't bounce between songs on a record. I actually, when I do a song, I'll when I'm writing the song, there's a process. So
Mhm.
of like staying with a song like
Sure.
until
Yeah.
I'm done like composing it. Now,
Okay.
um, I'll say I lay down the drums first. Sometimes that happens, sometimes not. Sometimes the idea is more drum based, and so I'll lay down the drums first. Other times it's piano based, so I'll lay down the piano first, or guitar, what have you. Like wherever the riff comes on whatever instrument, I'll kind of lead with that. Um, but I'll work my way through that song, like section by section.
Okay.
Like if it's an
Sure.
intro, I stick with the intro, and I just add the parts. And typically, like I'm going to take multiple days on every given instrument. So I'll typically do like a week of drums to make sure I'm feeling it right. And I'll do a week of
Nice.
piano. And then I'll do like a week's worth of guitar. And like maybe after the week's worth of guitar or something like that, I've looked back at the bass and thought like, I'm not really happy about that. So I might go back and shift it. But typically I'll work my way through without having to do that too much. And then once it's a cohesive song, it's got multiple sections. It's a verse, bridge, chorus, whatever the structure molds itself into. Um, like once that's kind of set up, and I feel as if the song is a song. It's a complete song. It has all the instrumentation. I feel like
Mhm.
that. Sometimes I come back and I don't believe it anymore because you need some
Yeah.
distance between yourself and the song. But
Yep, exactly.
once all the instrumentation is done, that does not go to mix. Like I move on to the next song, and like
Okay.
when I do records, when I would do a full album, I like to do like I like to release things all by single, but they all come to an album. It's basically it takes me a year to do a record, so I'm gonna go like here's a collection from this year. Like Grow um, is 9 songs. That's the album that's about to come out. Joy is 9 songs. I'm always going to put 9 songs on a record. That's about how many I can churn out in a given year if I give it the care that I believe it deserves. You know, it like
Yeah.
when I finish playing the song and hearing the song and putting all the instruments on the song, singing it, yada yada, like it's typically 6 months before I hear the thing again to go into its mix. And so
Yeah.
I'll mix that song through a full mix down. Everything's done on it the way I like it, and then I move on to the next song, and I'll mix all songs on the record like that, and then I'll.
Which is important for a record because you want all the songs to sound like they go together,
That's right.
right? When you're making an album, right? And so if you like go through a complete song through mixing and mastering and then create the next one, if you're not like doing the mixing at the same time, like there might be a little bit of a disconnect song to song,
That's right.
right?
And
And
so
I'm yeah, sorry.
no, it's well, so the like with the mixing issue, like as I go through, like I go through the record, I mix everything on the record. By the time I'm finished with the ninth song, say, with its mix, I go back through and do them all again. And typically, I only have to do like maybe an hour of touch up or 30 minutes of touch up on everything because it's really really close to where I wanted it. And now I've given myself time again, so I made it from song 1 to song 9. I haven't heard song 1 in a long time. It's been a few
Yeah.
weeks, so I go
That's
back
good.
and
That's good.
I run through that whole thing again. And when it's close, like when I feel like it's pretty much set, I try to stay like I try to stay ahead of like the records. Like so um you know, the third record it's done. So there's 9 songs already done, mixed and ready to go. And
That's awesome.
I've been on the fourth one, so I've been writing and doing and mixing the fourth one. But so for for this year 2025, like the following record, Step Towards Something, will be released in singles and then as a complete at the towards the
Okay.
end of the year. So
Nice.
like I try to stay ahead like that so that I always get distance between the songs where it's like, okay, I've mixed it, and I get some weeks or maybe even months. I mix it again, weeks and even months, and then when it's time to start releasing them, it's like, is there any final tweak that needs to be touched here? Maybe something added here in the in the outro or whatever. If that needs to be done um, right before it's sent off to master and then release, like great, and that gives me a lot of time to really like sit with it and understand like I'm not in a rush necessarily. I've sat with the song well enough to know like its characteristics and whether or not it's translating, whether or not it's like actually everything sounds good in it, but beyond just
Yeah.
sounding good, does the emotion translate really well? Like,
Yeah.
um, and without time, it's really difficult to do that. And I don't think like our current world is not set up for the time it takes to be an artist, but artists are just going to have to take it anyway and say like, this is how
Yeah.
long it takes to do this. Like,
Exactly.
that's, and like, sorry, but like, if you just like whip yourself though, because it's like, put more shit out. Like, what do you just, you hurt the creativity. So,
I
um,
agree.
I
One
think,
thing I got going, one thing I got going for me is like the fact that I work in all these different media is that
yeah,
like, if you're working on like an album for such a long time, you get it out into the world, like maybe you need a little break from making music after
hmm
you've completely burned yourself out on an album, right? And like, for me, I'm like, yeah, I'll just go fucking paint something before I want to make music again, right? Or like I am working on this novel. I wrote a short story that I shared on my blog to like help promote this album. Sorry, to help promote this novel I'm writing,
yeah,
and then realized I needed to also create a novella to like help promote this novel that I'm working on. And like, so I took a break from my like 160,000 word novel to write a 5,000 word short story and a 20,000 word novella. And I'm like, okay, like I need like a little bit of a break from writing. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make music. And by the time
yeah,
I'm done this album, I'm going to be like, I need a break from music for a while, but
that's
I'll
cool.
go finish my novel or paint or whatever. And like, you know, there's
That's
you don't get tired of each medium because you do it until you can't do it, and then you just switch to another medium until you're
Man,
ready to
that's
check it out.
that's so cool. That's so cool to have the skills that you have, like to be able to swap and just kind of shift through mediums like that. So, I mean, that's like color me very impressed. Like I am. You should
There's
know. Like,
there well, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. It's nice, and I'm really
really,
grateful that you invited me to be on here, that you have enough, like, you respect my art, that you want to like talk to me about this stuff. Like,
for sure.
means the world to me. It's awesome. I likewise have a lot of respect for the music that you do. You're
Thank you.
like classically trained as a musician. I am like a hobbyist hack. I like some of the music I've made, and I'm getting
You're
better,
putting out
but like,
some pretty cool shit. Like
thanks, man.
legit.
I appreciate it. But like, I work in all these media, but there's a lot of overlap, right?
Yeah.
Like, I work in three different visual media: painting, printmaking, pen illustration. That's easier to see the overlap, right? Because it's all like creating something visually. You're using your hand to make lines and shapes, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but there's like, it's easy to see the overlap there. But doing a pen drawing versus like a full reduction woodcut print, which is like very technically challenging and is a specific skill set, you know, like, yeah, there's overlap, but it's different. But like, there's even overlap. Like, another one that's a little easier to see is like writing a book versus writing lyrics, right? Like, you're using words to communicate yourself, and the prose versus poetry, and the being able to consider rhythm in music, and like, they're different, right? Like, someone who's an author isn't necessarily going to be able to write lyrics and vice versa, but there's overlap, right? So it's like, I work in all these different media, but like, being an artist, creating something from nothing, following through with the project, like, there's so much overlap in what I do, that I'm not trying to like downplay, like, oh, I do all this stuff, but like, it's not like five completely different things that I do. Like, I'm an artist, right? And like,
Yeah.
that's
You
that's
are.
what I am. I do all
That's
these
right.
things, but I'm an artist,
That's
right?
right.
And like, you're an artist. So yeah, I don't know.
Well,
it makes sense in my mind. Right.
so I like the thing that originally drew me to you. Um, this is good information. You should know this. Uh,
All right.
your line paintings were so creative to me. The fact that you use vertical and horizontal strokes
Yeah.
exclusively to get an idea
Yeah.
out, I was like, that is dope as hell. I thought that was so
Thanks,
cool
man.
that what you did was you've demonstrated a principle so fucking important to just being a decent human being. Like, I'm going to apply restraints to
Yes.
to become infinite. Watch, like,
Yes.
you
Yes.
you
I love
limited
it.
you
That's
limited yourself to be
yeah.
unlimited, man. It's like that's
Yeah.
you fucking showed that through an action, a physical carnal action of fucking up
Thanks,
and
man.
down and side to side, and then you were like, watch the reality that you're privy to. Watch it become fucking art with an X, with a fucking X and a Y. Like,
Yeah.
dude, fucking
Thanks, man.
like fuck you for being that cool, man. Like, damn it.
Thanks. That
You
means a
ever
lot
see
to me.
somebody do
Yeah.
something and you're like, God damn it, why didn't I think of that? That's so smart.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's funny because it seems so simple, but I've never seen anyone else do something like that. You know what I
dude,
mean?
me
Like,
either. Yeah, me either. I was like, that is fucking cool. This dude
yeah.
is just like, I loved that. I loved that so much, and I just there's things that it's reminded me of. Like, there's certain little beautiful techniques that exist in the audio world that like struck a nerve with me. Like,
Sure.
there's mix engineers that use something called LCR panning. That's left, center, right. They only
Mm.
use these three spots: extreme left, extreme right, and right up the fucking gut. And like,
Yeah.
it reminded me of that. It's like, man,
Yeah.
there's a serious limitation in that. It's like, oh, we have a shaker. Do you want it to be on the fucking right, the left, or in the middle? And there's like, when you can pan
That's
shit, it's
it.
like,
Yeah.
okay, well, like, you can do something like 33% over
Nope.
here, or like, it's like, no, no,
100% right.
it's fuck. The hi-hat is over here, dude, and the snare is right here, and the
Yeah.
kick is right
Yeah.
here, and the tom that's on your
Yeah.
right, it's fucking way over there. And so, and to the listener, it's like, you got two guitars, and one of them's over here. The bass gets to
Yeah.
sit in the middle, guitar's over here, and like, and it creates a
It's like
stereo feel.
immersive.
It's very immersive, and like, a lot of guys are like, no, you have an entire my damn camera just hates me today, bud. Like, you have an entire like immersive field that you can go into that's beyond left, center, right, for sure. But like,
Yeah.
this,
It's
this,
amazing what you can do when you restrict yourself.
when you restrict yourself, when you just limit it
Yeah.
and say like, hey,
Yeah.
I actually don't have all the options in the world. And I think honestly, that's what analog instruments do for you. They limit you in a way. It's like, I
Mhm.
don't have infinity synthesizers to choose from in a catalog of digital. It's like, I have a fucking guitar, and I have a certain amount of pedals, and like, I have an amp,
Yeah.
and it has a life, and it has a
Mhm.
characteristic, and it has its tubes in it, and it's going to sound what it sounds like. And like, it builds constraints that you get to build art with. And like, your just the vertical and horizontal limit, man, it spoke to like a deep part of me. I thought that was just
Thanks, man. That's awesome.
it's crafty and great. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're doing good work, and you're like, you're just setting it out like that. It's like, I don't know, it inspired me.
It feels nice to be appreciated. I mean, we talked a little bit about this when you and I did a quick hello last night. Is
For
like,
sure.
I'm like working my ass off putting all this stuff out into the world, but like, the world is loud, right? And like,
Yeah.
not very many people have noticed what I'm doing, and like, you have, and you're like, wow, this is really cool.
Yep.
And that feels really nice, but like, not very many people have like noticed what I'm doing. And so like, it's nice to like, this is, you're out of the noise, right? Being like, hey, what you're doing is cool, and like, it's really nice, and I appreciate that. So,
For
and I'm
sure.
glad my work has spoken to you. You know what I mean?
Every one of you humans out there, you lovely people, this is Damien Kane Rigden, and you you need to be privy to this man's art. His art is wonderful. All right, the visual world, the auditory world, like just tune in. Just like let him have
Thanks, man.
your mind for a
Yeah.
second because it's cool. Um,
And I
and
mean the other reason that I wanted to come on this podcast with you too is like I have a lot of respect for your work too,
thanks, man.
right?
I'm
Like
glad. I'm glad you
I
like it. That's all. That's
yeah,
all. Like
you
I
make
hope you like it.
you make good music. I like
Thank
people
you.
are totally sleeping on you too. I don't get that. I'm like, why doesn't this guy have like 100,000 listeners on Spotify yet? Like it doesn't make sense to me, and it like I'm like it sucks, right?
It's
But
because
it
I'm
is
such a
also like a
fucking
little bit
asshole.
validating where I'm like like maybe what I'm doing isn't that bad if this guy can be out there making this amazing music and like people haven't noticed him in a huge way yet either. So I'm like, it just, yeah, everything felt right about this and coming and talking to you and like, yeah, I have a
Cool.
lot of respect for your art too. And I was like, yeah, this guy seems awesome. We've been following each other on Threads for,
Threads is
what,
cool. Threads is
half a
cool, man.
year.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. I've
I'm
never
really
had good luck
glad.
with Meta. I've never had good luck with Meta. I started posting some links on Threads and then they completely throttled me. And now like you're the only one who ever sees and likes my threads on there. And so I just like I've been posting on Blue Sky a bit, but Blue Sky's also gotten like really busy and loud and
Mm,
I'm not putting stuff out there fast enough to break through the noise, and the more I spend on social media the less time I'm making art, and then I'm
yeah.
like right now there's no social media apps on my phone. I deleted them all. I'm like I need to work on this album. I need to not think about the world at all right now, and I need to just like make art, and then when I have something else to show I'm gonna go onto wherever and post my stuff. And I'm just like I'm exhausted with social media. I'm exhausted with Meta for like completely throttling everything I post, and I'm just like I don't know, the world is loud, and when you have like algorithms working against you, I'm just like, you know what? I like I'm an engineer. I can afford my life. I can support my art, and I'm just going to like create, and then every once in a while I'll throw it out into the void, and maybe at some point someone will listen, but in the
Hmm.
meantime, I don't know. I'm a very extroverted person, right? And I can like do just about anything, put myself out there in the world, but I like, I'm not like, yeah, I'm not on social media that much right now.
Man, I understand. I do. Like I've made a commitment to do a lot of social media this year.
You're good at it. You're good at it. I see your
I
stuff. You like,
it's strange to me still, but I don't like. I feel like I feel like it's kind of like advertising a bit, but I'm trying
yeah,
to make that enjoyable. That's all. And I think that this podcast is a way to do that and to just have good conversations to make content
yeah,
for the internet that's like
yep,
that's something good to have on the internet. I think conversations
yeah,
like this are good to
yeah,
have on the internet and like
definitely,
and so since there needs to be some like internet presence and like to because that's where people are consuming things and listening to things. I want you to hear my music because I'm an artist and I want you to hear it. So like, hey, I exist type of thing. You got to kind of
yeah,
do that and advertise.
exactly, yeah,
Um, but since I'm kind of imprisoned a bit by the system, I'm going to play, and because I think I can connect with people that are cool, and you're living proof of that. Because,
thanks, man,
I found you on Threads, and I thought it was cool,
yeah.
and like you're right, yeah, Threads is like it's not like it's not a place where I have like a big audience or anything like that.
But we met
But
there.
we
I will
met there.
forever have a place in my heart for Threads because of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we met there, and
Like,
it's
yeah,
like I hope I've I've met and spoken with a couple of other people from there, and I think that perhaps we'll wind up talking on a podcast like this. But you know, that's that's whenever the opportunity presents itself for artists to connect with one another, whether it's going to be digital and whether it's going to be in real life. Like I don't want to get too caught up on like how the connection happens or what have you. Like I would love I want to sit in a room with you in person for real. I do want to do that, but I'm
yeah,
glad that through any way like we managed to like reach out and touch each other, and now we
yeah,
know
yeah,
like that we're in the world and we do art and we're living at the same time, and we can talk about it and put it out into the world and tell people that we both
and I
make
can
stuff.
talk about art forever, for days, for years. Like what we've been talking for almost like 2 hours now,
Yeah.
right? And
Easy.
like
Yeah, easy.
I
Yeah.
we
It's
could
just what it
do
is.
this another 30 times, and I just wouldn't like. We came up with a bunch of bullet points for what to talk about. I mean, how many did we actually touch upon? Right?
God.
Like,
Nah.
yeah.
We got another
I
10
know.
episodes to do.
Yeah,
Um
exactly. Yeah,
well,
I'm happy to do this as many times as you want. This is great.
cool,
This is
man.
really fun.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad, and that's the way it should be. So, I guess what we'll do is wrap up this episode and tell everybody that
Yeah.
we'll see you another time. This
Yeah.
has been episode 1 of the process, and you will
So
see
fun.
quite a bit more of it. So, thank you all for tuning in, and Damien, I'll catch you on the other side, brother.
All right. Great talking to you, brother.
Hey, real
See you
quick,
next time.
real
Yeah,
quick.
sure.
Where
Yeah.
can everybody find you? On Instagram, on Threads? I know that you said you deleted everything right now, but where can people find you?
The best way to find me is my website, DamienKaneRigden.com, Kane with a K. Yeah, I don't know if you post this somewhere, you can put a link to my website or
Yep,
whatever.
absolutely will.
But
I'll put that in the description.
DamienKaneRigden.com has links to it's like my online portfolio. It has links to my social medias and stuff like that. But yeah, that's the best place to find me. And if you're really into my art and you want to learn more, sign up for my mailing list. You'll hear about every time I have a release, and yeah, that's how you get me.
Sweet, dude. Yes,
Right.
let that be a great lesson to all the artists out there. Get your own website, ladies and gentlemen. It is very important.
It is important.
Like it makes things better. And on that note, bearknocksmusic.com. And
Yes.
and we'll catch you all another time. Later, Damien.
All right. Awesome, man. Peace. Bye.